My name is Brad Bodnerchuk, and welcome to the Half a Dozen Hospitality Podcast, where we discuss everything hospitality, from the food on the plate to the teams that make it happen and the community that drives this industry forward. On this podcast, we sit down and chat with some of the most exciting, inspiring, and innovative minds that make up one of the most dynamic industries that there is today. And today, we are joined by the one and only Kai Ellis. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
You're very welcome. So the first question I generally lead into right away in this podcast and these interviews is what and how and why food? So when you and I came to know each other, it was through your project with Boku Bakery. So what was it? You can take me way back to when you were a kid if that was the case, but what was it? Why did Boku Bakery happen? Why you and why food?
Well, so this is, so there are so many prongs to this because obviously it's never food for just one reason.
Right.
But I would say the single most important experience in my life that caused Boku Bakery was actually, and it's written in the book, in my memoir, is the fact that I went through depression for many, many years of my life. And there was a period of time when it was one of the lowest. And every morning I would wake up and try to imagine one thing that would make me happy, that would give me a reason to live that day. Mm-hmm. And on many days, it was the thought of eating a chocolate chip cookie.
Amazing.
Yeah. And so I would just all day long be like, okay, just get through today, get through lunchtime, get through whatever. And then coffee time comes up, working at this office, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna have my chocolate chip cookie. And it gave me 3 minutes, 5 minutes of undisturbed joy, doing something that I knew was only for myself, that gave me pleasure. Right. And then eating chocolate chip cookies turned into finding the perfect chocolate chip cookie, turned into baking the perfect chocolate chip cookie, turned into starting a farmer's market, turned into leaving my design firm, shutting it down, going to Paris to study pastry, turned into Boku, because actually what I really wanted to accomplish with Boku was not just to sell chocolate chip cookies, but it was to be able to give people a space of rest and a space of inspiration in the same way that cafes and bakeries and a chocolate chip cookie had done for me.
That's amazing. That's a fantastic answer. And I could actually just envision you taking that time and that space to yourself through a busy day and just really enjoying that chocolate chip cookie. Amazing. Mm-hmm. And cut to where you're at today, not to jump through all of that and just avoid it, but today you find yourself in Paris. And can you give us a Coles Notes version on how you go from Boku Bakery opening, becoming a huge success, to now calling Paris, I'm guessing, your home away from home?
Yeah, okay, that's a slightly longer story. If I were to try to cut it down to a not so boring length, basically, I never really wanted to leave Paris when I went back to Vancouver, but I went back for various reasons. And then that's when I started Boku. And I always dreamt of coming back here, even as a visitor. So shortly after Boku opened, actually, it was a test that I had. After 3 months of being open, I booked a plane ticket and I came back to Paris.
Okay.
And just to see how well my staff was doing without me after 3 months, because my strategy was to not be a part of daily operations by 6 months. So I thought 3 month mark would be a really good test.
Right.
And then when I got here, I was like, man, I forgot how much I loved it here. Right. I think I just want to spend way more time here. And that's when I actually started the Paris tours, because that was it was my passion to show people pastry. But one of the side reasons why I started it was because I'm like, well, I have a reason to go to Paris and then write off the trip.
Yeah, exactly.
so that's why I started that business.
Right.
And then after a while, I became a travel writer. So I came a lot more often and traveled a lot more. And eventually I sold Boku because I had written the book, and I sold Boku for various reasons. And I realized when I got here, for what was planned to be a 6 months of traveling around Europe, I started looking at apartments and just ended up happening to find one
Amazing.
really quickly. And then everything just within months just fell into place. And then all of a sudden I had an apartment. So I didn't really plan it out all that much, but I think
Right.
deep down inside, I was probably planning something.
I feel like since I've known you, Jackie, I feel like you live a very serendipitous life, but a very purposeful one. And I mean, what I mean by that is, I feel like as an outsider watching you and seeing you grow and your success and the projects you take on, I feel like you trip into them a bit, but it's very mindful. Do you think that's a accurate description?
Yeah, I for sure, that's actually a really great description. People say to me, "Oh, you make it look so effortless," but it isn't. It isn't. I put a lot of work into trying to figure out what it is that makes me happy
Right.
and what it is that gives me purpose and joy. And that's easy and not easy. It takes constant reflection because we're constantly evolving too. And the things that we want, once we accomplish them, we kind of want to try something new.
Exactly.
So that takes a lot of self-discovery, and actually at some points a lot of courage, because in order to know what you want, you have to look at the things that really scare you about yourself too.
Right.
And then it's also serendipitous. And I've said to a lot of people that I feel like my life has been 90% chance, 10% hard work.
Okay.
And yeah, and I think that's what happens when you really truly define what makes you happy, what your priorities are, what gives you joy. Then it's like the universe conspires to just
Yeah.
put those things into your path. It doesn't mean that you just sit there, but it is this like kind of marriage between going out there and creating joy for yourself and being thankful, and then the
Hmm.
universe just sort of spills these lovely things in your path. So
Yeah, it reminds me of a book I read not too long ago called Big Magic. I don't know if it rings a bell with you. It's the same author that
yeah,
wrote Eat, Pray, Love, I believe. Her name
yeah.
escapes me right now, so I apologize. But the what I took from the book was that there's inspiration everywhere, and it's floating around in the world, and it may choose you at some point, and it's up
Mhm.
to you to act on that. You can ignore it and be afraid by what it might push you to do, or you can act on it. So I feel like you have this innate ability to be aware of that inspiration, and you just go into it like with, I don't want to call it ignorance, but sort of a bit of ignorance, but a lot of preparation as well. So I applaud you. Because like I said, watching you from afar, it's amazing. Like I was telling my partner Lindsay this morning, like, yeah, Jackie's now, she owns a place in Paris, and she's like, how, like what, how does she do that? And I don't know how she does it, but she just does it. So it's impressive, and it's also motivating. And since I've known you, you've been someone that I look up to, and as a sort of a mentor. So keep doing what you do, because you push people like me to get better. So thank you so much.
That's a huge compliment. Thank you.
Uh, Going back to the chocolate chip cookie for a second, do you think the book, and let's talk about the book for a minute, do you think the book was just a bigger chocolate chip cookie for you?
Um, a bigger chocolate chip cookie,
In the sense
like
of, like holding space for yourself and doing something for you, it's going to make you happy? Or was the book another Boku Bakery? Was it just something else you really wanted to kind of tick a box and cross off on your list?
it was more of a Boku bakery, because when Random House had first approached me to write the book, I actually said no, because they said, "Why don't you write a memoir?" And I immediately knew that if you're going to write a story about your life, you have to write all the crappy stuff
Right.
as well as the good stuff. You can't just write the good stuff, because in this day and age of like Instagrammable moments where you put all of your life's highlights up, it becomes a very strange space to exist in the world, where people think that success has come in this sort of like, you know, where it doesn't have any difficult stuff that comes before it. The
Right.
difficult stuff makes the good stuff make sense.
Hmm.
And I wasn't really ready at that point to be so vulnerable. And I ended up reading a book called The Gifts of Vulnerability. Um, uh, Now the name escapes
That's
me.
all right. We're forgetting all these authors.
Oh, Brene Brown. Brene
Oh, Brene
Brown.
Brown. She's amazing.
Yeah. Oh, she's so good. And I realized that the only thing that was stopping me from being so vulnerable was fear of being known. And I
Right.
realized that there's no way to have connection with your community with the world, with others, if you're not able to get over this fear of being vulnerable and being your true self.
Right.
And when I thought about what I wanted to do, and I use this filter for all the projects that I think about working on, is number one, does it use my unique skills and talents? Am I passionate about it? And then the next one is, do I feel like it would make me a better person to have done it?
Right.
And the fourth one is, do I feel like it would better my community or the world or somebody else out there other than me? Does it serve my community in some way?
Right.
And the book just checked off all the checklist. And I wrote it because I had gone through all of these really difficult experiences, and I thought, if it could help someone accept themselves, to know that they're not alone, to know that there's more than just the pain that they're feeling in that moment, and that potentially if they just keep one foot in front of the other, they'll get somewhere that they want to be. It's possible.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's why I wrote it.
Amazing. Well, I admittedly haven't read it yet, but I will go out and get that book and definitely read it. So we'll discuss this at the end of the podcast as well, but briefly tell us where we can find the book right now, and how we can support you.
Yeah, the book is, I don't want to say everywhere, but it sort of is everywhere. You can get it like almost in every country on whatever, Amazon. In Canada, it is Heather's pick at Indigo Chapter, so it'll be right at the front of the store. You can get it, I don't know, like bookstores and online, every whatever's.
Nice. That's a great answer. Hey, online everywhere. Let's just find that book and buy it and support Jackie. And I think it's such a powerful thing. And I think we're getting off on a tangent here, which I actually love. We're not necessarily discussing hospitality right now, which is fine, but this is like totally my jam. I find it very challenging. And as you know, I've reached out to you to talk about some projects that I've been working on in the past. And I think ego is such a massive part of I guess, like being an entrepreneur and being someone that's trying to do something different. So how do you find you exercise your ego, putting it aside and just writing a book like this and getting messy? Was that a big process for you to just kind of, if I can say, be naked a bit and be vulnerable? Was it a big process, or did it come kind of naturally?
I think it came by the time I actually decided to do something. I mean, I am a lot more thoughtful about jumping into things, because I actually process all the what ifs around it before I decide to jump in. So with the book, I was like, okay, if I write a book about my life and it's out there that I suffered from depression and eating disorders and, all of that stuff, how am I going to go on a date?
Right.
Like things like that. I was like, I need to think this through. Am I ready to be the poster child for some of these issues if that were to happen? So I processed all of that. So by the time I actually started doing it, it wasn't a thing anymore, because I'd already gotten over the fears and the emotions of it. In terms of ego, I mean, everyone has one, obviously.
Yes.
The ego of do you mean like the ego of not wanting to get dirty and just like
the ego of just being vulnerable and just putting your story out there and allowing it to be digested by other people and interpreted by other people and commented on by other people? Even just putting a picture on Instagram, you're putting yourself out there. But taking something like your life story, the good, the bad, and the ugly, it just, for me as an outsider, again, you to put your ego to the side and be like, it doesn't matter what people say, it doesn't matter what they think. I'm just doing this for those that will benefit from it.
Yeah, I don't think I have very much ego with the book. Yeah, because I'm like, well, some people are going to love it and some people are going to hate it. And it's kind of it has nothing to do with me.
Right.
In a weird way. It's like, I did the best that I possibly could. And if someone hates it, chances are the bad feedback that I've seen, some of it I'm like, yeah, actually that's true. Like I should have maybe looked at that structure a bit more, But a lot of the feedback, the most interesting part is really just, I struck a chord with someone's issues, and then they're projecting their anger at the
Yeah.
book, which is
Yeah.
really just anger at themselves. And I
Exactly.
don't take any of it on, because I
That's good.
know, yeah, I actually just know that this book is no longer me. It's a project that I put out there, and it's public territory. And
Yeah.
I did the same thing with Boku. It's not
Exactly.
mine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's reminds me of the quote. It's none of your business what other people think of you.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
I mean,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, people project all sorts of stuff onto the most random things that have no
Yeah.
meaning,
Yeah.
and we can't control any of it. So it's like, well,
Yeah.
like
Why
any
spend the
opinion that
energy?
I think,
Yeah.
yeah, it's just like, what do I think about it? Okay, well, then that's enough.
Yeah.
So,
Let's change speeds for a second and talk about food. Something that I know brought
okay.
you and I together originally back in the day when I was trying to peddle you products from a company I used to sell for, and you were just opening up Boku. Um, what do you find the biggest difference between a restaurant in Vancouver and a restaurant in a place like Paris? What is the difference? Paint the picture for the viewers and listeners.
Well, first of all, the service is so much better in Vancouver.
Oh, okay.
Um, I'm sort of a joke, but sort of not, like
Right.
this. Like, I mean, France is known as just not being as accommodating,
Right.
but not in a bad way, because I think that some Europeans, without that culture of like extremely kind service, would come to places like Vancouver or some places in the States and go, oh my gosh, I almost feel suffocated by the
Right.
service.
Right.
And so it's all a matter of perspective. Um, so in terms of food, Paris has so much tradition.
Mm-hmm.
It's got so much history that in some ways they're in a very strange place where they're trying to balance um, protecting their heritage and keeping things traditional, like as per the book, but meanwhile not stifling innovation and creativity.
Right.
How do you then change things without changing things?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So they're struggling with that right now. And so for the I'd say for the past 5 years, there have been there's like new wave of French cuisine, surprisingly looking a whole lot like um, you know, dishes that might come out of like Farmer's Apprentice in Vancouver,
Okay.
um, that sort of like French techniques with fresh ingredients that you
Right.
can find locally.
Right.
So there's that. But then I think the biggest difference between Vancouver and Paris is that in Paris, you can actually find a true fine dining restaurant.
Right.
In Vancouver, that doesn't exist. And I
Yeah.
even talked to Scott Yeager, who owns the Pear Tree. And I said, congrats on such a beautiful fine dining place.
Right.
It's very rare that you can find a white tablecloth in Vancouver anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, well, actually, funny enough, like we started out never thinking we were fine dining, just sort of like mid to high end. But
Right.
because all the fine dining went away, he all of a sudden became fine dining.
He is the go-to.
Yeah. And so that's the one thing I'd say is that there's a huge range of restaurants here, from
Mm-hmm.
very, very cheap and cheerful to, you know, 1,200 euro per person meals.
Right. Do you find that if you were speaking to the general population and they had a choice to go dine in Paris for an evening or go dine in Vancouver, where do you think people would be most comfortable? And this is a sweeping generalization. So taking all the themes of all the restaurants and lumping them into one, do you find that Vancouver dining is more approachable? And I'll say Vancouver meaning like Canadian, and we'll call it North American for lack of a better term, a big,
Mm-hmm.
big blanket. Or do you find that more European, that traditional Parisian? Where do you find it would be easier to appeal to Gen Pop?
Um, I, well, That's a confusing question to me. Okay, not to like, it's not a critique at all,
No,
but
no.
I end up seeing like 10 questions in one question. So I'm like, where do I want to
that
go
seems
with
that seems to be
this?
one of my issues on this podcast is I ask someone something and I'm really asking them 18 questions in one. So
Yeah. Well, okay.
I guess what I'm
I
saying
mean,
is, if you had, sorry to interrupt, if you had a family from Toronto and
yeah.
they wanted to go to, let's say they wanted to go to a white tablecloth fine dining, would the white tablecloth fine dining in Vancouver be more approachable than the white tablecloth fine dining in Paris? And if so, why?
Oh, for sure, it's more approachable in North America. Um, and it's really just because there's a lot of, and not across the board, there are some Michelin starred restaurants that have come out recently that have very approachable, very warm service, and not at all stuffy. And they've made it so specifically because they didn't like going for fine dining food and fine dining atmosphere and dealing with fine dining attitude.
Right.
So there's that, and I think that's specifically why I think North American fine dining can be so much more approachable, is
Mhm.
because just because the place looks nice and the food looks really beautiful, um, doesn't necessarily mean that people need to be cold or have this sort of classist uh,
Right. Right.
system, attitude towards people. That's what I've been finding. It has been the new direction of fine dining restaurants too, even in Paris. So
Yeah, yeah. I think for me, I've only been to Paris the one time and didn't truly immerse myself in all that is the Parisian experience when it comes to the culinary side of things. But I definitely feel like the scene that we have here in Vancouver and others that I've been to, like in Toronto and Portland and Seattle. I do find that even chefs that are curating these beautiful menus, it still is a very, I don't want to say very relaxed, but it's a welcoming and comforting environment. And that
mm,
to me is kind of the new hospitality. So I'm kind of proud of us as Canadians, as North Americans, that we're kind of putting a different spin on what hospitality is. And maybe you can jump in here and give your opinion. Does hospitality, the word, have a different definition here than it does in Europe?
um, I'd love to speak on behalf of France, like, or Parisians, but I really am not Parisian, as much as a lot of people would like to believe I am.
Right.
I mean, if I called myself a Parisian to a Parisian, they'd laugh. So um, I think that hospitality in general doesn't um, have a different connotation, but it culturally, a Canadian might see it as colder,
Right. Right.
just because it's just the culture that um, Canadians hop to it to make someone feel so welcome. They
Yes.
hop to apologizing
Yeah.
for apologizing. In Paris, the culture, it seems kind of strange that someone would be so warm from the
Right.
get-go. And it really is. Yeah. So I'd say, did I answer the
No,
question?
you did definitely. You did definitely.
It's like,
Do you find that if you walk into a restaurant in Paris or anywhere in France and they are off the hop, like big smiles, hello, welcome, are you a bit kind of, whoa, wait a second, what's going on here? Is your back up a bit? Are you questioning it, or are you just letting it happen?
no, I'm like, oh, must be opened by expats.
So there's a great question is, do you want that? Like when you were curating the Paris tours, do you want people to experience the quote unquote real Paris, their real version of hospitality? Are you taking them to those places where they're a bit rude and they're a bit stuffy? Like, is that what you want?
Well, I mean, there's that, basically we're kind of talking about that same question. How do you change and yet not change?
Yeah.
And this is the biggest issue that people have been having with Paris is, and my friend Lindsay Tremuta, she recently wrote a book called The New Paris.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and it's a beautiful guidebook on where to go in Paris, And because people have this idea of Paris in a time capsule,
Right.
it's like, oh, but that's Paris. But then
Right.
when you actually live here and you live in, say, the 10th, the 11th, the 3rd, Paris looks very different. It looks like crazy new wave coffee shops, the Australian guys that opened up a pancake place.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I mean, and burger shops everywhere. I mean, this is also Paris, and so I think it's important for people to see both sides, this new Paris and
Right.
old Paris.
So if we were to find you reading a Brene Brown book later today, or I guess it would be tomorrow morning for you now, where would you be dining? Can you give us a name of either some of your favorite watering holes or places you've been going to?
Yeah, I mean, this one's quite popular amongst Parisians and expats. It's called La Fontaine de Belleville,
Okay.
and it's in the, I think, what is that arrondissement? It's like the 18th or 19th. It's kind of right across the canal from me.
Okay.
And they've done a really good job, marrying actually the old and the new.
Oh, cool.
So yeah, so they have like very French hipsters working behind the counter,
Right.
but they have like, and it looks very Parisian, like that classic cafe, where it spills out onto the street.
Right.
But they have like biodynamic wines and
Oh, okay.
charcuterie boards with like, some pig that only ate some very beautiful acorn. So
Right.
yeah.
Right. That's very cool. And I'm assuming the weather is nice in Paris right now.
Oh yeah, it's really hot. It's like 30 something degrees. And
So
yeah.
you're reading the book and you're drinking what?
Oh, well, right now, rosé,
Rosé.
100% with ice cubes in it, as they do in the South.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say,
Yeah,
is that a faux pas or no?
it's if you ask for it, it's more acceptable now. I'd say like 5 years ago, if you asked for it, Parisians would kind of be like, "Ugh, must be from the South." But now everyone does it because it's so hot, and your rosé goes warm after like
Right.
5 minutes, and I'm not going to chug a rosé. So
Right.
yeah, you just ask for a little glass of ice cubes on the side, and you slowly put them in. And I mean, rosé is not precious wine, so we got to get over that.
I like that. I like that. Now, before you and I hit record and started the podcast, we were talking about kind of what's next for you, what's next for Jackie Ellis. Do you mind sharing a bit of what you've been pontificating on, what that looks like, or is it too early days?
Well, I mean, I don't have really any plans at all. And we were kind of talking about how, after I sold Boku, and my only plan was really to go on this 6-month exploration of Europe.
Mhm.
So I kind of rented a car and drove around Italy and Portugal and Spain and parts of France as well. And I had expected for the heavens to part and gift me with some inspiration on what
Right.
my next thing was. And then I realized that that was my timing and not the universe's, and that I just needed to calm down
Right.
and not have 5 projects going at once. So right now I'm doing nothing, and I like to joke around and tell people that I'm unemployed,
Yeah.
which I mean is sort of true, and it isn't true at the same time.
Yeah.
I don't know. And I think this is a perfect example of what we're kind of saying, which is people change
Hmm.
and we constantly evolve.
Totally.
And just because we had it figured out at one point doesn't mean that we're not going to be back in that same place where, we go, well, what now? And I think the what now is actually a really good place to be, because it means that you're growing.
Right. Right. And if we were to see you and call in and have a podcast 5 years from now, magic wand,
Yes.
not what are you doing, but where are you taking the call?
Oh, where am I taking call? Oh, I don't know. If I knew that, then I would probably
I'm saying magic wand,
already.
dream a dream. What would it be? Where would you be? Would you be still in Paris? Would you be in Istanbul? Would you be in Greece? Would you be in downtown Vancouver? Ideal magic wand scenario, 5 years from now, where are you taking
But
a call?
this is the thing. I live magic wand. So
Oh,
the
okay.
fact that I
Wow.
don't know,
Yes.
it means that I really don't know. Because if I knew, I would already be on my way to doing it.
Right. I appreciate how strong you are, because most people would just fold and answer that question and just make something up to appease me. But I appreciate you saying, no, Brad, like you're not listening to what I'm saying. This is the magic wand.
Yeah, this
I
is the
love that.
magic wand.
I have 2 questions for you that I ask every guest, and I don't prompt them. So I'm going to put you on the spot here a bit, but you seem to do really well with bobbing, ducking, and weaving. So we'll keep that up. It's called the Half a Dozen Hospitality Podcast. So I have for you, Jackie, the half a dozen have tos. So hear me out. I need from you 1 to 6, so 1 to half a dozen of Jackie Ellis's have tos, something you've done and you want our listeners to do. They have to travel here. They have to try this rosé. They have to write a book. They have to get out of their own way. What are 1 to half a dozen things that others have to do?
Okay, I'll try to keep some deep and some light.
Okay.
Okay, have to. Okay, can I just preface this by saying, like, I never tell people they have to do anything.
Yes,
Like,
no, I know.
I find that so
We're not.
bossy.
Yes, we're not. Yes, I know. It's more of a suggestion than a you must. But something,
Okay.
these things that you've done that you really think people would benefit from.
Okay, Jackie Kai Ellis's might want to's.
Yes.
Wake up every day and define one small thing that would give you an amount of pleasure during the day, whether it's
Right.
having a coffee in bed or whatever. Just pinpoint it, because I like doing that only because when I'm actually doing it, I stop to go, oh, this thing is giving me joy. So
Right.
it's mainly just like a conscious thing.
Right.
That's number 1. Drink a kir. Okay, not a
Okay.
kir royale.
Yes, which most people are familiar with. Yeah.
Like bubbly and
Yeah.
champagne and creme de cassis.
Mm-hmm.
I think that get a cheap white wine, not even
Right.
like a good one, just some like, average white wine that you didn't spend a lot on,
Right.
and make just a kir. Creme de cassis and white wine. It's such a refreshing cocktail. And I feel like nobody really does them in North America.
Yeah, you
It's
don't
like,
see them all. When I lived in London for a few years, they were everywhere. But yeah, great advice. And the weather we're having locally right now in Vancouver, it's perfect for that.
yeah, they give you bad hangovers, but they're really delicious in the moment.
Okay, that's 2.
Spend time off your phone, people watching.
I like that one a lot.
That one's so fun because I think that we've lost the ability just to sit and be curious about our surroundings. And I love people watching because I make up crazy stories about who's in front of me. What else?
3 is good. Most people. Oh, okay, go.
Really? I love this.
Okay, go. Yeah.
Go and get your tarot cards read.
Ooh, yeah, that freaks me out for some reason. I've never done that.
There's a place in Vancouver called the Good Spirit. And my friend Savannah, she's very good.
Oh God, that's
so
scary.
If you go, I mean, whatever. It's just some cards. Take it or leave it.
Yeah, exactly.
But I always think that that's one of those things that everyone should do at least once in their lives.
Amazing. You know what? I'm at a point right now where a lot is changing for me with having a new baby and all these things, and with the podcast. I'm now going to take your, not challenge, but your have to, and I'm going to go do it. So I'm going to look up your friend and I'm going to go do it, and I will report back to you on either how bountiful my life is going to be or how scary it's going to be.
Okay. One more. Go somewhere and be naked in public.
Whoa.
Not like illegally.
No.
Illegally.
Follow the law, people.
Follow the law. But go to Spain, go to a beach in Spain
and be naked.
And just get buck naked and just swim in the sea or whatever naked.
Yeah.
That's the best.
I like that. I like that a lot. Those were amazing. I appreciate that. The next question I have for you is the Jackie Kai Ellis's haven't yet. So 1, to half a dozen of things. I mean, it seems like you've done a lot, but I'm sure there's still things on your list that you haven't done yet. So can you provide the listeners and the viewers Jackie Kai Ellis's haven't yet?
Yeah. Okay. I do have some things that are on my list. I would like to go to Peru.
Okay.
And go to Machu Picchu and potentially do ayahuasca. I have not. I've just been waffling on that. I wanted to do it for a long time, and then I decided not to, just because I'm like, well, I sort of did this other thing called holotropic breathwork. I'm sounding like a crazy person.
No, not at all.
Anyway,
This is
you're
totally speaking my language right now. I haven't done it either, but yeah, I'm interested by it.
Another thing I want to do is spend, a month traveling around India.
Oh,
that
beautiful.
would be something I want to do.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing I want to do, buy a dining room table and dining room chairs for my new apartment.
That's pretty practical. I like it. All right, so can I ask a personal question? Are you now dining? Are you eating your duck l'orange in bed?
No, I'm standing at the kitchen counter.
Oh, okay, like a true foodie.
Still, I also eat out a lot. Like, my kitchen is just newly built, and I just bought pots and pans, and I've still been traveling, so I haven't really cooked anything in my kitchen yet.
Right.
So
yeah. If I can say, if you don't follow Jackie on social media, please do, because I've been, again, living vicariously through social media and looking at your new space in Paris, and it's beautiful. And I was so intrigued by the process of watching it. I'm going to call it renovation for lack of a better term that you did on it. It looks absolutely stunning. So again, if you don't follow Jackie, please do, and go look at what she shares, because it really is a beautiful space and must be somewhere that you really enjoy coming back to every time.
Yeah, absolutely. It feels like home. So
that's awesome. Any other haven't yets that you want to share?
Haven't yet. Oh, I really know. I mean, I think I haven't yet figured out what my next step is. I don't know.
Yeah, there you go. That's good.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Before we wrap this up, I want to quickly bring it back to the book for a second. And I want to ask you, in your opinion, who is this book for? Who do you want this book to land in the hands of? Who do you want this book to find next to their bed? And who do you want to really take something from what you've written and what you shared?
Well, I don't know if I have someone that I want to, but the people that I feel like I've been hearing that it's really helped is someone who either has felt some amount of shame of themselves, for themselves, and wants to find a bit of self-acceptance, someone who's embarking on a new phase of their life that feels scared, someone that knows that wherever they are is not where they're supposed to be and just can't figure out where to go next, and someone who loves food and travel. I think those were the commonalities.
Awesome. Amazing. I want to take a second to congratulate you on the book, and I want to take a second to recognize you, Jackie, for doing what you do, inspiring so many people, including myself, to be better every day. And I'm amazed and excited by what you have done. And I'm amazed and excited to see what you go on to do. So thank you so much for doing what you do day in, day out. And thank you for taking time and holding space for me, as you always have done since I've known you. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much. I really do appreciate that, because I know you're very busy. You're trying to catch up on some sleep. So thank you again for holding space. I really do appreciate it.
Thank you. This is definitely my pleasure. And every time you've asked me to talk, I've always been like, yep, I know we're going to have a good conversation.
It's amazing. It's funny. And just to pump your tires a bit for a second, is because to me, you are someone who is very successful, and people measure success differently, whether it's money, whatever it is, followers, et cetera, et cetera. But to me, you've always been super accessible and super humble. And I hope one day that I can pay that forward and be that for someone else. And I really do appreciate, whether it's a text message or a direct message on Instagram or an email. You've always been there for me, and that means the world. So thank you so much. Whether it comes to promoting your book or buying whatever you put out next, I am there to support you. So thank you so much again for always supporting me. I really do appreciate that. And I do consider you a friend. So thank you.
Thank you. My pleasure. My pleasure.
So before we do let you go officially, where can people find you? Where can they reach out? Where can they support you? We know it's Heather's Pick at Indigo, so you can go buy the book there, but also online as well. Aside from the book, where can people find out what Jackie Kai Ellis is up to?
I think the best way to find out what I'm up to is Instagram. That's the media that I enjoy the most.
Right.
There's that is also, I guess my website, JackieKaiEllis.com. And I think that's it.
Perfect. I like it. Pretty simple. Jackie's website, and check her out on Instagram as well, guys. Thank you guys so much for tuning in and listening and viewing. We appreciate you listening, and I appreciate you guys tuning in week after week. Tune in next week for a brand new episode where I bring you someone exciting, innovative, and creative from the hospitality industry. Thank you again, Jackie, and we'll see you guys next time. Be good and do good. That's it. We did it.
Perfect. Thank you very, very much. That was fun.
Thank you so much. You were great. And I apologize if a few of my questions sounded like 12 questions in one.
No. I tend to be very well, wait a second.
Yeah. No, and you know what? And I'm Lindsay, my partner, is like, you need to, what does she say? She always has very positive feedback for me, but critical at the same time, which is great, which only makes me stronger. But yeah, thank you so much for this. I really do appreciate you taking the time to do this. And I don't know where and when we'll connect next, but I really look forward to whatever it is you're going to do.
Absolutely. And also congratulations on your baby.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Wow.
Yeah.
Huge.
Yeah. Yeah. So last time we spoke, I was picking your brain about the restaurant industry. And it still is my big, hairy, audacious goal. But quick Coles notes while I got you. I lost my biggest investor, my cousin, who's quite liquid, upwards of $300,000, which was kind of like the meat of the pie. So I had to, unfortunately, back out of the space that I had found. And at that point, Lindsay was about 6 months pregnant. And I had to make a decision. Like, am I going to go blindly into this with the capital that I have and then spend the first year not really seeing our baby and not really being there for our family? And I just thought I couldn't do that. So that's on hold right now, hence this podcast. I want to really establish myself as a thought leader in this industry and align myself with people like you and others. And it's been super fun for me so far. And the feedback's been fantastic. So yeah, but yeah, the baby thing's pretty amazing.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I mean, not that you need it, but good choice. Good choice.
You know what? I think a lot like you. I listened to my heart, and I didn't spend too much time sitting down and being very pragmatic about it. But I think the time that I needed, I spent on it. And I just thought, you know what? This is bigger than a restaurant right now, and this is bigger than a bit of my ego of wanting to be the guy that owns a restaurant in Vancouver and wanting to change things. Let's be a killer partner and a killer dad. And that's kind of what I'm doing right now. So
awesome. I love that. Very cool.
Congratulations. Thank you so much. I'm going to let you get back to your evening.
Evening.
Thank you so much again for doing this. What I'll do is, before this is released, I'm going to send you the versions to listen to and to watch. And if you don't like something, let me know. We can cut it out. We can edit it. And then once we do have the polished version, I'll send you all the links so you can share it if you wish on your social media platforms.
Okay. Sounds good.
Okay. Thanks, Jackie, so much. Have an amazing day. I really do appreciate your time.
You too. Okay.
Chat soon.
Later.
Bye.
Okay. Bye.